Good morning and welcome to Bolton. I'm Joyce Stilley, the Administrative Officer for the Town of Bolton, and this is a live show done the first and the third Tuesdays of each month from 10:30 to 11 a.m. The show is rebroadcast on the second and fourth Tuesdays at the same time. The show is a continuing effort to promote open communications within the community, and if you have any upcoming events, any questions about town happenings, or just would like to see a specific topic discussed on the show, please contact me at the town hall and we will try to get a show on that covers that topic for you. Today I have as a special guest the new fire chief, Bruce Dixon. Welcome, Bruce.
Joyce, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
And Chief, you've been part of the fire service for quite a while. Let's talk a little bit about your background.
Well, I started in the fire service actually back in 1971. That's about the end I'll use for dates. I actually got off my bus, school bus, and Mort Harlow, who was fire chief then, handed me an application. And that started the history of Bruce Dixon Fire Service. Yeah.
And you were part of actually the fire service when this was the fire department here in the building we're currently in.
Yeah, you're right. This brings back a lot of memories in this building. We had 4 engines in this building back in the 70s, and spent a lot of long hours and days and nights with some pretty powerful people in the town working in the fire service to really get us indoctrinated and brought up in the service properly. Yep.
And for a while you had left Bolton and gone and served in the fire service elsewhere, yep, and then came back to Bolton. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about your experiences elsewhere.
Yep. I was in Bolton for several years while going to college, and I got married, went to Manchester, joined the 8th Utilities District down there, and I served with those folks for about 8 years down north end of Manchester. Excellent experience, excellent experience. From there, our family moved up to Tolland, joined the Tolland Fire Department. I was in Tolland Fire Department for 19 years. I spent a good deal of that time as deputy chief in the Tolland Fire Department. While in Tolland, went through a number of courses and classes, state certifications, etc. Became a fire instructor, and I served out at Eastern Connecticut Fire School in Willimantic for about 13 years as a fire instructor out there.
And you still do a little bit of that.
Well, I backed off on the fire instructing a little bit, but they call me back to proctor the exams now, so that makes it still keep my feet in it up there. Yeah, yeah. Great group of folks and excellent education system they pass on, and most of the firefighters in Eastern Connecticut. Yeah. Yep.
I myself have gone to Eastern Connecticut Fire Training School for several classes over the course of the years.
Yeah, yeah. That's evolved to a very interesting school, changed the curriculum a lot over the years to get it more into the different types of fire rescue and hazardous materials. We're very excited because it should, hopefully within the next year, have groundbreaking for the new fire school, which the state's provided us funding for up there. And I've sat on that committee for the layout of the fire school, and I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to be very, very nice. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. And besides being a firefighter, you also have experience in the medical side as well.
A little bit. I'm a certified EMT in the state of Connecticut, and I've done that for a number of years also. Up in Tolland, rode on the ambulance and operated the ambulance for about 12, 13 years up there. Yeah, so a lot of experience in the medical side, definitely.
And you're the new fire chief, and let's talk a little bit about how that occurs within the department itself.
I came back into town about 2004, and I had, quote, retired from the Tolland Fire Department, or a lot of good memories. And I was going to retire and sit back. Well, my friends...
It never works out quite like we planned, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But actually, it worked out for the best. My good friends, Jim Price, Pete Mora, etc. We talked to them, and they said, come on back. So I did. After a few months, came back. And so it's a full circle, back to Bolton, which I'm very, very pleased of. And came back as an officer, moved up to deputy chief of training, as I've done for a number of years here in Bolton. And then the chief is elected in the Bolton Fire Department It's a 1-year period. It's elected by the membership of the department. The chief and the deputy chief are elected. Other officers, the assistant chief, the captains, the lieutenants further down, are appointed by the chief of the fire department, which I've done just recently with new members. Yeah.
And we should talk a little bit about the former chief, Jim Price, who we all call Junior.
Yep.
That Jim, people may not realize the time and commitment to be a chief. And if you have a young family, it's even more difficult.
It definitely is. You know, they call it volunteer fire department, and there's been volunteers in town here since 1941. Chief McKinney was the first chief, and I'm lucky enough, I guess, to, if I can say it, number 13, chief number 13 for Bolton Fire Department. But in between, a number of great gentlemen have stepped up to the plate.
Yes.
Chief Mort Harlow, Chief Mike Hickey, Jim Price, Rick Hyder, Dana Rattazzi, Bill Kavanaugh, just to name a few. And Jimmy Price that you just mentioned, he was chief for 4 years. He's been in the department, still in the department, been 19 years in the department. Stepped up to the plate, took on the chief for 4 years. And it is a big commitment. I think a guy who really understands that is his father,
Yes.
Jim Price and James Price. And Jim was chief of the Bolton Fire Department for 31 years. The time commitment, we're volunteers, but it's almost a part-time, close to full-time job to run the chief of the fire department. Not only running the medical calls, the fire calls, but also the administrative side of it. And multiple different meetings, within the community, outside the community, county level. It's a challenge. It's a lot of fun. I like it a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
And key to the success of any chief officer is his officers. Perhaps you'd want to talk a little bit about who your officers are and
Sure. Yep.
their background.
Yeah, the officers that have been appointed in the Bolton Fire Department now, elected right now is Deputy Chief Peter Mora. Pete's been a resident in town as long as I have, okay? Longer because he was here in between when I left. Pete and I went to school together. He's a veteran of the Air Force, town employee, and very valued in his position, from in town. He'd been in the fire department for years, worked his way up to lieutenant. Several years ago, became captain. And after having some conversation with him back in April, and we elected him as deputy chief of the fire department, number 2 position in the fire department right now. Yep. Below him would be the assistant chief. Assistant chief I appointed this year was Gregory Minicillo. Greg's got a history, a young fellow. He's got a history in fire service through multiple different classes, Fire 1, Fire 2, several officer classes. Very involved in the medical field. Very, very close to finish up his paramedic. He's been in the law enforcement field, and right now he currently works in the emergency medical field as a paid man in emergency medical. Next up from him would be Captain Dale Bond. Dale is also very involved in the fire service. He's our 911 coordinator in town. He handles all, he's on the cistern committee for water, which we need more water in town here. He turned around and beside 911, he's a coordinator for all the Knox boxes, which are the security boxes on many of the commercial buildings and even residential and municipal buildings within town. It makes it easy access for the fire department to get in at off hours when no one's around. He's got his degree in fire technology out of New Haven, University of New Haven, and he's also a fire instructor too, so a very valued member of the team.
Definitely.
Don Assard is captain. Don was deputy chief in the fire department for several years. He'd been a resident in town all his life. He used to be the animal control officer.
Correct.
And still got his heart in that, to tell you the truth. Don does a lot for the department behind the scenes. Great guy. Then we go down to lieutenant position. My first lieutenant will be Chip White, Lieutenant Chip White. He's a town employee. Many people in town know him. They probably don't know he's been a member of the fire department for 20 years.
Right.
Very, very knowledgeable in apparatus, trucks, setting up. In fact, he is our driver, trainer, and instructor for the fire department now for all apparatus. He goes out, set up all the training does all the testing, and then finally it'll come to me for final approval. Lieutenant Chuck Rexroad. Chuck is a EMS, or our medical lieutenant. Chuck's been in the medical field for a number of years also, coming to us luckily from Virginia and Washington, D.C. area, where he's very involved in the emergency medical service down there. A professional in the radio business, and helped us an awful lot working on our EOC at the firehouse and setting our radio systems up to where they are today. Lieutenant Jennifer Baum, been in town a number of years, a business owner. Lieutenant Bond came into the service, wanted to get into the medical field. She did, she jumped right into it, got her certification in a very short period of time. Is involved in taking classes outside of town also to increase her knowledge of the service, and an asset to the department. Very, very good. Next on will be Lieutenant Tom Galeota. Lieutenant Galeota is my chief engineer for the fire department. What that means is he's in charge of all mobile equipment. Anything that rolls in the fire department, he oversees it. All the trucks, the apparatus, the maintenance, service of it, etc. A huge job, huge job. And then Lieutenant Tom Byrne, we call him PD 134, or Gumby, as I refer to him. You see him out in the street, he's got his lime green gear, trying to protect us on the scene and do traffic control. And so that's a very, very powerful group. Yep.
Yes, with a lot of years of experience, and a mixture of young and old, and certainly some foresight as to the future of the department as well.
And that's a big part of it, okay? We had interviews for those positions. The deputy and I sat down with each one of the candidates and several others. There's definitely other members of the department that are worthy of that position, you know, an officer position. And they've elected to step back at this point, but have come to me and said, Chief, I want to do more. What can I do? So some of the larger tasks within the organization, they've stepped to the plate and have helped me immensely.
Well, the fire service is no different than other branches of town government, where as much as we would wish that it didn't occur, there's more and more regulations and checks that have to be done, and paperwork that this paperless society, it's all just computerized now, but there's more and more of that that's required on a day-to-day basis in the fire service as well as every other part of town government.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Paperless is an interesting way to put things. In reality, I don't see it happening. I've turned around, and very shortly we'll have iPads in 3 of the apparatus, along with interacting with the dispatch center, the emergency EOC at the fire department. And so the folks in the trucks will have an awful lot of information resources at their fingertips now. I'll put that in Service 134, our Suburban, which is a first response all medical. It'll be in Engine Tank 334, which is a piece of fire apparatus with a pump, water, and hose that is actually going out to bid right now for refurbishment because of its age and the condition. And then our new Rescue 134, which the taxpayers, you know, got together and have graciously given us to use to help them out. Rescue 134, it's our first response to all car accidents. Chief Price, you mentioned Jim Price, Jr., turned around, had a foresight in designing that truck, where actually there's 6 hydraulic tools on that truck. Historically, you've got 2, maybe 2 more as a backup, but we've got 6 live tools on there. So with with Interstate 384, Route 6 and 44, which has a tendency to get a little congested out there with accidents periodically, we can handle multiple vehicles and do it in a lot faster way because of Chief Price's insight there. Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit, you just mentioned calls, types of calls that you go out on, like how many a year. I don't think people have any clue of the breadth and scope of the work of the fire department.
Well, yeah, historically people think of the fire department when they get a situation they can't handle, and they push those 3 special numbers, 911. The fire department trains and has meetings every Monday night. Every Monday night, unless it's Christmas or Thanksgiving. And we meet at the firehouse, 7 o'clock, the door is open. We're looking for more volunteers all the time. It's a great way to give back to your community, and we assist you in doing that in training and bringing you up through the service. Through that training, we train on fire, we train on rescue, whether it be rescue out in the field, whether it be extrication, whether it be medical rescue, EMS or emergency medical first aid, to keep it basic. We train on all these things because the Bolton Fire Department responds to approximately 450 calls per year, okay? That doesn't include service calls, pumping out basements, or a lot of other miscellaneous calls. But 450 calls that are dispatched by the Town and County Mutual Aid System. And those comprise of what I just spoke of: fire, medical, rescue calls, etc. And of the 450, approximately 70% of these now, Joyce, are all medical calls. Yep. So.
And you actually, mutual aid is a big part too. You going to other towns or other towns coming here, but some of that goes into some of the specialty, more specialty things, such as you have a boat and divers, or even you were out the other day involved in a search and rescue.
You're right. Yeah, you bring it up. Mutual aid is a large part of the fire service because though we have 36 members of the Bolton Volunteer Fire Department, 36 members of town have stepped up to say they want to join us, and very rewarding to do that. You know, that's the biggest part of it. It's volunteer, but very rewarding in what we see from the public coming back and say thank you. We can't do that completely in Bolton when we have a large incident, so we rely on a mutual aid system. And from our, whether sister towns, whether it be Andover, whether it be Coventry, whether it be Hebron, whether it be Vernon, whether it be 8th Utilities District, or even the Town of Manchester Fire Rescue. Multiple other resources out there that we need to have brought into town, and vice versa. We've got resources that we get called out of town quite often to assist them in their needs. You mentioned quickly we're coming into the swimming season, and yes, there's a Town and County dive team out there, certified divers. We have a boat that is on wheels and it's mobile, and whenever a call comes in for a dive or a water rescue in our area that we work in mutual aid, we get a phone call and we'll send a team of volunteers out there to assist in that. We just had the search up in Ellington where they had a bad car accident, and a person took off from that scene. Talent County was mobilized with the Connecticut State Police to go out and search for this person. And they called on the UTVs, utility vehicles, which we have one in the fire department, thanks to the town. And so Deputy Chief Mora and firefighter Malin Clark went up to Ellington and spent time in the woods under the direction of the incident command up there, and eventually, as part of the team, located that person and brought him back. Yep.
And there's different levels of training, as we've talked about a little bit, but there's different levels of training, and you provide training on many different things, and even hazmat, hazardous materials, that there's training involved in that. You talked briefly about membership and how people could join, but could you talk a little bit further about those types of things?
Sure. As far as membership, we're always looking for people of all walks of life, to come down to the fire department to see what we do. That's the best way to stop in a Monday night, see our folks in action. We sit and talk to you, describe to you, show you what we do, walk you around. You come in, and if you don't know what part of the service you want to get into, or you're just interested in the medical or a fire side, more than happy to expand your knowledge in that. By doing that, you mentioned training. We have an awful lot of in-house training. Every Monday night we broach a different subject, but also we work with like Eastern Connecticut Fire School or several of the medical training fields on the outside to enhance our training. I've been a fire instructor for a number of years, but I'm not trained in everything, or I don't instruct in everything, because there's other people that have different specialties. A new group that was just formed in town, thank you very much, was the new CERT team.
Yes.
Okay, CERT team was, right now there's 14 members of that group, all different ages and all different walks of life. And they wanted to be involved somehow in the emergency response team. Luckily, I've had the opportunity to teach 2 of those classes over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I welcome those teams, any of those members, and I've done it right openly to them. Please, if I'm on a scene or fire department is doing something, stop in, introduce yourself, identify yourself, and I'll put them to work. We've got some work there. So volunteers of all different walks of life can definitely be used in the fire service. Again, the training, we take care of that, we handle that, and it doesn't cost you anything. initially, to get into that. All the apparatus the town provides for us. The gear, our turnout gear, which averages $1,200 to $1,400 per set of gear per member, the town's providing that for us. And it's quite a system. We've been doing it since 1941, and it seems to be working. Always looking to enhance the program, and that's why I brought up a few of these new officers and put them in different positions, like Assistant Chief Minicello or Captain Dale Bond, Captain Assard, to really help out and enhance that program. Yeah.
Let's talk, you just briefly mentioned equipment. People may not have any idea of the wide range of equipment that you must have.
Yeah, we could even use a helicopter, Joyce. That would be nice, but I don't think that's happening today. No, we've got in town for the various different structures that we have, from small sheds right up to the some of the larger homes, which are getting very large in square footage. It requires different type of firefighting. It also requires different apparatus. And because of budgets, we can't afford all the apparatus we need, so that's why we rely on a mutual aid system. Right now, we're in the process of going out to bid, which you've sent out. We had a pre-bid meeting the other day for ET-334, one of the older pieces of fire equipment. It's 1,000 gallons of water, 1,500 gallon pump on it, and it's starting to rust and fall apart. So in talking with the First Selectman and yourself, Chief Price in the past started the program to let's go out and refurbish that instead of burdening the taxpayers with another $700,000 bill for a new piece of equipment. One of the pieces of equipment we are looking at right now are the engine tank 234, which is a 2,000 gallon tank, 1,250 gallon pump. That truck, along with the engine tank out of Vernon, are the last of its kind that pump the water off through a 4-inch hose. All the other large tankers that we use as mutual aid, whether it be Columbia, whether it be Hebron, et cetera, all have, or Thailand, have discharges where they can discharge 3,000 gallons of water in a minute and a half.
Right.
Where out of ET-234, it takes multiple minutes to get it out. And when we're using water on the scene, approximately 150 gallons a minute plus, that water goes away pretty quick. So we're looking at, I've started a committee under your direction. I've started a committee to look to replace engine tank 234, the oldest piece of equipment in the fleet, with the exception of the forestry truck.
That's what I was going to say, except for the forestry.
Forestry truck's got a very special age. I'm kind of near and dear to that truck, so we'll talk about that later. But we're looking to replace that truck with a 3,000 gallon tanker to give us more water on wheels. And that kind of dovetails with the cistern project going on in town now.
Correct.
Very, very important project. I'd rather not get into that right now because it'd take up the rest of the morning here, but thanks for bringing that subject up.
Well, and people may not realize that, we got a ladder truck, but how much even home styles, you talked about bigger homes, but you didn't even address that now roofing there's not just a single peak, it's multiple peaks. And that just makes it more difficult for firefighters to be able to safely get up there without something such as a ladder truck, or to even for people to think about how much hose you even have to have.
Yeah. It can get into a whole another session. We should probably talk about equipment and apparatus and things. But the ladder truck, the subject came up back in 2008. We took delivery of the ladder truck. It's a Pierce 100-foot aerial piece that Chief and James Price had the foresight of bringing that to the selectmen. And we trained on that when that came in. It's definitely state of the art. Many of the local departments have been over to look at that truck because they'd like to duplicate it for themselves. When that came in, I was in charge of training 5 members of the department on that truck. And we spent in excess of 70 hours per person just learning how to properly and safely use that piece of equipment. And don't you know, as my luck goes, just as we were ready to put it online, we got the major structure fire over in South Road. And Chief Jim Price at that point called me on the radio and said, put that truck in service. And the multiple peaks, the pitched driveway, the pump that burned up on a fire apparatus on the scene, so all lines had to be transferred to that ladder truck. We had people in the building under heavy fire conditions. When the pump gave out on the old apparatus, it burned up, and truck 134 saved the day. saved the guys inside and made us a lot safer ventilating that roof. It's helped us immensely. It's not used every day, but it's saved us many problems over the last couple of years.
Having been one of those people back in the fire service trying to operate that 35-foot extension ladder, it's like night and day.
Oh, it's a beautiful piece of equipment to train on, but the ladder truck, when we push the buttons, makes it a lot simpler, yeah, a lot safer.
We already are down to just a couple minutes,
Okay.
so I'll let you have some closing thoughts.
Well, again, it's a pleasure to be here. I was surprised when I got the phone call. 2 months into the job now, it's a pleasure to serve with the men and women in the fire department. We're looking again for increased membership, and my main mission is, with Deputy Chief Mora, to turn around and train the members and the officers and give them more experience so they can move up and take over the roles of the chief officer positions in the future. So, yeah.
Excellent. And again, any Monday night, people can drop in.
Please, 7 o'clock, the door's open. If it's not open, knock on it, we'll open it up. If it's raining, we'll be inside there historically.
Ironically, before the show, we were talking about how you've gotten hit with calls a few Monday nights recently, and things have not quite worked out for training as probably anticipated.
Yeah, it's majority of the number of people in town probably don't know, but there's a number that do commute on highways. 2 Monday nights ago, we had a 3-foot diameter tree come down on Route 6 across from Munson's Candy Kitchen. It took out every power line, every communication line, and blocked that road. So I shut the road down with the help of the Connecticut DOT, and we shut Route 6 down completely for, I think it was about 12 or 13 hours. And then last night we had a accident. Could have been a very serious accident, a tractor trailer unit down on Bolton Center Road, and again with the help of Connecticut State Police, DEEP, hazmat teams, the Connecticut DOT, Bolton Highway Department, and every piece of equipment from the fire department, with the exception of the ladder truck. We closed that road down for a period of time too. It's been a challenge, but
Yes.
a very enjoyable challenge. I appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Joyce.
Tonight is Board of Selectmen's meeting, and it'll be through the usual appointments that occur at the July. We will be talking about the year in review at the next meeting. Thank you to Community Voice Channel for its continued support, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.